Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will talk about Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Now, HAL is the largest DPSU with 20 production divisions and 11 R&D centers. Out of the 31 types of aircraft produced so far by the HAL, 17 have been of indigenous design. As of now, it is engaged in production of Su-30, LCA Tejas and Dornier-228 aircrafts along with Dhruv-ALH, Chetak and Cheetal helicopters. This is in addition to repair and overhaul of several other aircrafts and copters such as Jaguar, Mirage, MiG-21 and AN-32, etc. However, this Navratana has run into rough weather due to delayed deliveries and quality-related issues with its products. The Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament, in its report last December, had also expressed serious concern over delays in delivery of required number of Tejas combat aircrafts to the Indian Air Force. According to the report, this has resulted in IAF having to upgrade several aircrafts at a cost of approximately 20,000 crore rupees. Now, the recent crash of the multi-role fighter Mirage 2000, killing 2 pilots, has brought the focus back on HAL and its capabilities. So what are the contributions of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited and what are the challenges and road ahead for this defense PSU? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests today in the studio. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with Air Commodore retired Prashant Dikshit as our defense expert. We also have with us Air Vice Marshal retired P.K. Srivastava, somebody who was a part of BDL, another defense PSU. And we have with us Mr. Ajay Banerjee, the defense correspondent of the Tribune. Welcome all of you gentlemen to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, Commodore Dikshit, to try and understand. HAL was established around, say, 77 years ago. And over a period of time, it has produced a lot of aircrafts and helicopters and overhauled a number of them. So in terms of contribution, it has contributed a lot as far as Indian Defence Forces are concerned.
No, there is no doubt in that. Although I dare say that our today's discussion is essentially prompted by the crash of that Mirage aircraft. That makes one sad, but I think that has to be investigated, and I would honestly implore you not to link that up with HAL's performance. But having said that, what actually appears to most of us is that HAL has become too big. In the period before the discussion, Ajay had perhaps hinted that the staff numbers are very high. But what has been happening is, as I see, that it has got too much of different varieties on its plate. And I think we got to make sure that its work is focused in a general area. Just to illustrate, the divisions are Bangalore, Nashik, Korwa, Kasargod, Lucknow, Kanpur, Koraput, and maybe a couple of more, which I may have missed. I believe they have a turnover of $2 billion annually. But the work is of varieties. Why is it necessary for HAL to go about producing rocket engines for the Department of Space? I'm only giving an illustration. Maybe some other organization among the Indian DPSUs or a very totally different one should have been initiated. Whilst on one hand, one is aware that in the development of the LCA, the technologies have permeated to different universities in India. That has happened. But the LCA has gone back. Now, the delay in the LCA is truly not the problems of the HAL so much as the sanctions which were imposed on the development of combat aircraft post-Pokhran, and that has set us back. That is the recorded history of India, although we never seem to recall that portion where we were in difficulty. But having overcome that, one sees that the HAL is not able to satisfy its most prominent customer, namely the Indian Air Force. And there is this constant tussle between them, and including some remarks by people in very eminent positions as to how they have not liked the HAL, or the HAL said how is it they were not at fault. This is a sad commentary. I don't know, maybe in the course of discussion you'll perhaps consider talking as to what do we do about it.
Exactly, we'll come to that point.
Yes, but at this particular juncture, I dare say HAL is on the mat. And I'm and there are some political overtures which have taken place in the past, and one would be truly delighted to know how can we make the best out of it.
Okay, let's bring in Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava here. Commodore Dixit spoke about how there have been certain delays and the foremost customer for HAL, that's the Indian Air Force, is not quite happy. In fact, there is a list as well, and this is pretty much in the public domain, that how many projects, what kind of delays are there. In case of Sukhoi 30, there is a delay of 3 years. In case of Mirage 2000 upgrade, there is a delay of around 2 years. Then Jaguar upgrade, around a delay of 6 years. So a lot of delays, and that's where it looks like the Indian Air Force's criticism is rightly placed.
I would say the Indian Air Force comments is not ill-placed, but we need to do what we need to do. We cannot just put HAL on mat, as Air Commodore brought out. HAL is needed because it has the capacity for the aircraft manufacturing. All the capacity or the major capacity in the country exists within them. We need to find out and work out how we need to use the same capacity to the best of the national advantage. One point which comes out very clear, that HAL has spread too thin. And in any country, if you want to have aircraft production going at the rate at which we want, whether it's LCA or any other project, you need an ecosystem to get established. So the basic issue, if you really ask me, which is linked to productivity of HAL itself as a system integrator or system of systems integrator, whether you take any example from other countries, is that absence of aircraft industrial ecosystem. HAL has to be suitably supported by something like if you take Dassault, Rafale is the latest example, they are supported very well by Safran, MBDA, Thales. These are the things, major companies which support them. Where are those companies for us? So we came out with one strategic policy in the DPP 2016. But as it unfolded, we don't want in private sector and the HAL to come. If you really ask me to comment on that, what we want the gap filler. Our tier 1 is missing in aircraft manufacturing. Can we build them? Can we bring them in place? And what government support is required? Anytime if you take in any country, whether you take from Brazilian experience or you take from Chinese experience itself, or you take US, all these companies are in very, very high threshold technology areas. You really can't get them through offsets, the technology. You need to create your own. You get something because of your interconnect with the other countries, and you put and create a structure where all these can survive and go on.
Okay.
So I would say 3 pillars: government policy, the aircraft manufacturing ecosystem, and one oversighting body, which we have been thinking for a long time in terms of National Aeronautics Commission, but it has not come into play. That gives you a platform where you can project your issues in terms of innovations, of future requirements or the current requirements, and can analyze a thing like what happened in Bangalore. And there's an oversighting body to see the regulations are fully formed. Unless we have these 3-pegged structure coming in place, we can keep saying, okay, or keep beating the individual institutions, but they really can't give you the output which we desire.
Okay, so there is a lot which needs to be done as well. Let me bring in Ajay here. Ajay, from your perspective, what seems to have gone wrong for HAL along the road that these questions are being raised now?
See, Vishal, I'll put it in the perspective. We are talking in the backdrop of an air crash which killed 2 pilots. I'll keep that separately, but this program has been initiated because of that. See, first of all, HAL has done a very good job in case of helicopters, the advanced light helicopters. It's a good helicopter, that's what the forces say. Around 220 of those helicopters are flying. And they are powered by French engines, they are twin-engined, and they fly up to heights of Siachen. And they have ALH has taken over the major role in the Himalayas at the moment. They are back up to the Mi-17s actually. In case of the Tejas, I would say that HAL has started outsourcing some of its work to private companies 2 years ago. Some of that is showing results. And HAL needs to be now an integrator for the Tejas, as Sir had pointed out that the tier 1 systems are not there. The tier 1 systems are really not there in the country. HAL cannot be blamed for that. However, I would also want that the HAL needs a major shake-up, a major modernization, and HAL cannot be handed over to Babu sitting in the Ministry of Defence. There has to be a professional managing it, and they have to cut down on staff, they have to cut down, get real about what they are doing, they are spreading out too thin, and HAL has to speed up production of work. However, I must add, if the country has to become a global power, HAL has to grow very strong, and I would request everybody to keep the politics out of HAL. Please let them grow. They are just taking baby steps. We are just learning the tricks of the trade. You cannot compare HAL with, say, Airbus. They have been making helicopters for what, 50 years, 60 years? So we are just learning the tricks of the trade. So let us not compare ourselves with the US or Europe. We are taking baby steps. Let us take them as baby steps. Keep on pushing them, keep on egging them on, keep on giving them the necessary pat on the back that keep on doing it. Accidents have happened, they're unfortunate, but I would reckon that we have to move ahead, and a major plan for modernization of HAL and a shake-up of HAL should come in, Vishal.
Okay, I'll bring in Vice Marshal Srivastava here again, and something which Ajay said on the aspect of professional management, and there's a report as well in 2014. This was under former Air Vice Marshal M. Matheswaran, which talked about how the HAL needs to be corporatized, as in terms of privatization. Bring in more professionals and make it more professional, something which Ajay is also pointing out. Is that the way ahead? Is that something which is the most crucial aspect, Vice Marshal Srivastava?
So I cannot disagree with Ajay on that point. But what I need to add up, okay, let's see the example next door. What happened to Chinese growth or Chinese economy? If we take the period from 1952 to 1978, they also grew at the rate of 3% or something. Then from 1978 to 2007 is another period when they opened up. And when they opened up, what did they do? They privatized a lot of things. Of course, it's a different kind of regime over there, different kind of processes over there, but still the growth was phenomenal. It was in 2 digits or at least 8%. And that brought the whole thing. So let's be specific to our sector. What did they do, which we are not doing? Firstly, they declared aircraft manufacturing as the strategic or niche sector as a nation, because technologies which are taken over by or which are absorbed by the aircraft manufacturing, they can diffuse into other areas of economy. And that is what the Japanese philosophy has also been. So these two, if you marry these two philosophies, what you need to say that yes, we grew, let's say our 1952 to 78 period for us is the period when public sector or government driven development took place in HAL. Now we come to the second phase. We need HAL because we cannot abandon HAL just in between. It has all the capacities, as I mentioned earlier. We need to create tier 1. That is the missing link. And to create tier 1, we need government intervention. And if you take another example, which happens from US or which happens from Brazil or which happens from even Japanese aviation sector, it comes to market segmentation. You can't pit public sector against private sector. If you want to go for tendering for all this, it will not happen. Because if you really ask me, tendering is again a kind of a blinder for all of us.
So there are positives and negatives.
There are. So we need to mature. We need to mature and bring in the second arm of the economy, that is the private sector, at tier 1 level. Through our policies and through very conscious effort. And I will agree with him totally. We cannot just egg out the HAL. We need to push or edge HAL to do more and more towards productivity. Your all delays are actually hostess to productivity. We need to improve our productivity. If we can improve the productivity and things are available on time, then so much of clamor would not happen. So much of customer not getting satisfied will not happen.
So Commander Dixit, do you agree with what Air Vice Marshal Srivastava is saying, and also what Ajay pointed out? In a nutshell, focus on productivity, because that is where you will address the core concerns of delays in deliveries as well as quality aspect.
Vishal, how do we do that?
That's exactly my question.
Now, both these gentlemen have pointed out that the HAL has become thin. So stop some of the jobs going to them. Mind you, the HAL is being looked after by the Department of Defense Production. They are the masters. Lay down policy. For example, the HAL is also doing work for some aerospace companies of Europe, Boeing and others. There is no complaint from them. They're also doing private work for other of these organizations. No complaint from them. So it's the premier player. So the long and short is, let not some work be done by HAL. Let not HAL do everything. That's the point. And they have got this widely spread facility. For example, Lucknow, they produce some of their avionics and so on. So there are capacities there. Can we do something more? Can some private player take on some place, use capacities? But let that not be the responsibility of Hindustan Aeronautics. Reduce the volume of work, make the best of what you do. Secondly, there was this news item, HAL not being paid. Maybe in the current times, all these items appear as a part of the political battle which is going on. But if that were to be true, even to the smallest variety, let that be sorted out. And mind you, this is not the forum to talk about that, but I think the Department of Defense Production is not playing the role which is required to do. You see the same thing in the Ordnance Factory Board. And mind you, there are bodies created who are currently contributing to deciding what we should do. But is that coming about?
So no. All players will have to put their energies, their specific role will have to be played rightly. Ajay, do you agree with what Commodore Dixit is saying specifically, that a focused approach is what is required and might be the answer to what both of you were saying, that HAL has been spread thin?
Vishal, first of all, let us all be clear. I hope the government is listening. HAL needs a major shake-up. By shake-up, I mean not that you throw out people or you make them jobless, not at all. Please make them work better. By work better, I mean once you are producing 8 Tejas per year, the country needs 16 or 18 planes per year. Country needs around 30 helicopters per year for the next 20 years. The ALH is a good helicopter, make 30 of them. You're going to make the Kamov next with the Russian Kamov company. You're going to make 200 of the Kamov. And you have to make around 800 more helicopters, 1,000 helicopters. If in the next 10-15 years, if you don't make at 50 helicopters a year, when will you finish? There is a new plant coming at Tumkur, which is 100 kilometers north of Bangalore, the HAL new plant which Prime Minister Modi inaugurated. Now, what we need to do is focus on the work, because now what is happening is the pace is too slow. But again, I'm not saying it is bad. Please keep the pace up. How will you keep the pace up? Bring in modern management tools. Do not live in the 1960s era. I'm not saying the HAL is in the 1960s era. It is in the 2010s at least. But then there is a limitation of technologies.
Professional management.
As Air Marshal Srivastava was pointing out, nobody will give you niche technologies in joint ventures. Like, for example, we are supposedly in a joint venture with SMECA, which makes engines for the ALH. Supposedly there is a joint venture. But can HAL make an engine of its own? No. Because SMECA will not tell you the trick of making that engine. Otherwise, their company will shut down. Similarly, when you are making a Sukhoi, it is just completely knocked down case from the Soviet Union and Russia later. You are making nothing, literally nothing. The only thing you are making on your own is the Tejas. Please make it good. You are making an ALH which is good. Keep on making it and keep on adding to it. Don't sit on the laurels that ALH humne bana diya, bahut acha hai. Please make a better helicopter. Make it, take the next step forward.
Keep on improving on what they're doing.
Yeah, I want to quickly say one point. You know, HAL ought to stop this developmental work for some time. Remain in production, produce the stuff. Development, I mean, they're developing the Rudra. Now, the choice of systems which have to go on board the Tejas, that's also being considered by HAL. Why can't the Air Force not do their work and give it to them? Or why not the ADE, Aeronautical Development Establishment? Why not the DRDO? So, as I said, simply said, just get on with your production, increase capacities, meet your commitments. Let the others do their thinking and give it to you. That's the point.
Ajay, before I go to...
Very briefly, see, HAL has to, I think the government should step in. Who are the biggest customers of HAL? Those people should have a stay in the management of HAL. That is what I want to say.
That's the biggest customer is Indian Air Force, as was pointed out by Commodore Dixit earlier. Yes, AVM Srivastava.
So, the customer, firstly, as we see a lot of noise in the media and otherwise, the customer has to reign supreme. If we give that relaxation, that customer can be forced to place order on you, there'll be cozy comfort in any kind of production unit. That I know by experience. So that cozy comfort will bring down the productivity. But we also have to see, when we're talking about spread thin, what do we mean? There are tiers, tier 1 or the system integrator, when we say the OEM. If I give the tag of OEM to HAL for various aircraft they make, which are indigenously developed, then they have to do only final assembly or at the best pre-final assembly. Rest about engines, undercarriage, aerostructures, avionics must go to tier 1 players. like it is there, the order of the industry world over.
So contributory mechanism is what you're pointing.
So what happens when you have that kind of structure within you, you already have the corporate within you, because you are assembling, your productivity will go up. Where is any kind of thallus with us? Nothing. So you are now, what you are doing is spreading thin in terms of your management spread itself. You have to keep track of everyone, a small vendor who's supplying a very small component in HAL is star connected to the management of the HAL. No, that's too much of management burden. And that will bring down the productivity of any kind of corporate you think of. So this has not happened worldwide, it will not happen here. We need to understand that the missing link, which is in the form of our avionics, our engines, our aerostructures, our roll equipment is there. This missing link needs to be filled up.
So the professional management again, which
that is the
Ajay
professional management Ajay was pointing out.
Okay, Commodore Dixit, do you agree that professional management is the answer to that, a big question as to what do we do about HAL
spreading? I fully agree with the term, but this term itself is understood differently by different groups.
Yes.
See, there are engineers after all in HAL, they are professional in managing and so on so. But you know what AVM has been talking has simply said, they should outsource.
Okay.
You know, if you want to make wheels, ask somebody else to do it. If you want to make an undercarriage structure, ask somebody else to do it. People will come forward and do it. They have to be paid. And therefore, and once the items come, you put it all together. That is what I have been saying.
And what about giving more say to the end customer, and the biggest one, the Indian Air Force, as Ajay was pointing out?
Yeah, but the Indian Air Force, the conflict between the two is that the HAL says that they are changing the goalpost too often, and the Air Force says, where are we changing the goalpost? We have said this in the beginning. Mind you, and the media is having a great day on that score. I think Air Marshal Sinha wrote a lovely piece in the Indian Express, and he candidly said, let both Air Force and HAL get together and sort it out. Don't squabble in public. I would say that, let that be the gospel.
Okay. Ajay?
Very briefly, see, Vishal, what happens, HAL has outsourced some work in 2016 to four private companies, including L&T, WEM Technologies, I can remember two of those names. Now, when they outsource this work, they have to assess that it is to be integrated. I always say that HAL has to be an integrator now. Outsource it, bring it integrated. That is how global companies function, as AVM Srivastava was also pointing out. Airbus doesn't make everything. The wing is made in Spain and the wheels are made somewhere else, the undercarriage wheel somewhere else, just integrated. HAL has to be an integrator now. You don't have an engine, it is already you purchased a GE engine, General Electric engine from the US. So that is a static engine, you have a standing engine with you. Now you have to integrate the other stuff, and please speed up. You need 18 planes per year. 323 Tejas have to be made of various versions. You are making 8 per year. It will be what, 4 or 5 decades at that rate. You have to make 30 every year to finish it.
Okay.
And let me quickly add, Airbus airframes are being made by the HAL. I've heard that. Now it's a matter of investigating.
Okay, let's have the final word from
so when I say, I must clarify, when I say that we must make modules, I am talking about tier 1 modules. I am not talking about tier 2 and tier 3, because tier 2 and tier 3 can be done, again you have to come and assemble. You need to make the major component assembly. When we say you make the aerostructure, means you make the major aerostructure which can go in the pre-FAL hangar or the FAL hangar, the final assembly level hangar, and gets integrated. Then your speed will be very high. And thereafter what happens, if you keep, let's say, HAL in the forefront, then the aircraft once inducted in the armed forces remains there minimum for 40 to 50 years. You need a standing company which will go through all the thick and thin of the economic cycle and still be there to support the armed forces. So that way HAL being on top is not a bad philosophy. So what we need to say, HAL need to stay, but HAL need to share the work in a regulatory fashion. We shouldn't do any work which is a tier 1 itself. If that can be a diktat which can be then through one National Aeronautics Commission or something, which a body is there, regulatory body, which can oversee, continuous oversight is required. It cannot happen through a debate on our television channel that we do one time some injection of thoughts and ideas and they'll solve the problem. It has to be a continuous effort. And there has to be a DARPA style or DARPA kind of thing available, where a young entrepreneur, if he feels like doing something, contributing something to the national aviation might, he can go and approach freely and can get some kind of pat. Of course, it has come in a very minor way in terms of make 1 and make 2. But these are too complicated for anyone to really practice it. It has to be easy to practice. It cannot be only policy, easy in policy, that I have given this to you. It has to be very easy to practice. That's where will lie the key. The gap is there.
Okay, so all these gaps needs to be fulfilled, and as our panelists have pointed out, that HAL, that is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, has done a lot of work, contributed a lot to our defense forces, but as the work and expectations rise with time, a focused approach and a professional management might be the solution and the answer to the problems HAL is facing right now. We'll come back next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.